you like really want to see out of, like, what's the number one thing that screams at you whenever you think of Final Fantasy VII Remake 2?
I think well, for me, I personally can't wait to see the Nibelheim reactor incident. That's a big moment for me. It's probably my favorite moment in the entire original game. All three of them in the original game.
Yeah, I love when Genesis shows up.
No, we don't. We don't like that.
It's canon.
But I think, like, if we're talking gameplay wise, I hate you guys.
I had to do it, bro.
Yeah, I know.
I had to do it to him.
I think gameplay wise, I think just a more depth in combat.
Give me strength. Let's go.
Probably, I'd like to see more aerial combat and have that more fleshed out, because it was good base, but I felt like it was kind of lacking in the first game. So I think game 2 really needs to improve aerial combat and stuff.
Yeah, I think aerial combat is like a thing that jumps out at a lot of people. FishFriedCat, when you think of Final Fantasy VII Remake 2 and what you want to see out of it primarily, like, what's the first thing that really just like screams at you?
Death. I want to see death in Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Yeah. Wow. I actually kind of strongly agree with that, right?
I also strongly agree with that.
Because loss is such a central theme to Final Fantasy VII. So we need to lose something in the next game in order I
need some stakes.
Yeah.
We do. We need some stakes.
I really don't like this. I really don't like this meta commentary of us actually, instead of losing any lives in the game, that we lost the original story. I don't like that commentary at all.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people aren't even upset about that, right? So that just goes to show. I think that one thing that Nomada said when Nomada killed Aerith, and he was talking about it in an interview, because he was actually the one who decided that Aerith should die. And when he talked about it that he knows that it was an effective loss because people couldn't get over it. Like, they were looking for like cheat codes and stuff that they could use in order to bring Aerith back to life. And so I think when you think in that mentality, which I think is a good mentality to think about, right? Because if you took something away from people and they're upset and they want it back, that means that you took something of value away from them, right? So, I actually strongly,
you took their healer.
Yeah, you took the white mage, right? And even though there aren't like fixed classes, well, there are, but there aren't in Final Fantasy VII. You know, it's still, there's nobody like Aerith to like fill her role, combat wise. So it was like a very important loss. The first thing that I think of, though, when it comes to Final Fantasy VII Remake 2, is actually. And I know this is weird, but the first thing I tend to think of is where this thing is going to end, because that's actually going to determine the scope of the game, right? So with the first game, we knew that thing ended with the escape from Midgar, and when we knew that pretty much as soon as they said it was going to be like a full game of Midgar, so we kind of had like a very good idea of where this thing was going to end and exactly where it'll begin. Right now, we just imagine that it's going to be straight up opening with the Calm flashback, which is, I mean, that's what we all assume anyway. Who knows at this point with
I feel like you have
timeline.
to end it, or you have to begin it on a high note.
Yeah. Well, and like what can be like a higher note than like the Calm flashback. Sorry, let me move my window a little down here. But yeah, what could be a higher note than the Calm flashback? Exactly. Because that's just such a hype moment. Like opening a game with that too, where hopefully being able to control Sephiroth and actually, you know what? I don't even know if you should control him.
Yeah, I think they need to keep that mystique. Like, I feel like Zack's going to be a playable character at some point.
Yeah.
So I think keeping Sephiroth at that distance needs to still happen.
I think making Cloud play like very clunky actually during that opening section, but then you see Sephiroth. That's like, walking ahead of you, and he's just like tearing shit up, and then here you are trying to like you're trying to like swing your sword at shit, and it's not even working. I think that's
kind of like Tidus in the beginning of 10 when Auron gives him the sword. He's kind of like walking around like a baby giraffe with it.
Yeah, exactly. Something like that is basically how I think that they need to open the game with. Actually, and like I was saying, like playing with Sephiroth may not actually be a great idea either, because in an action game system, it really give you a good feel for him, and then it would almost feel like a downgrade when you switched over to Cloud. But here, it's just more mysterious if you see Sephiroth doing like all of these things. But going back to what I was saying about where the game should actually end, I would like to ask, where do you guys think the game will end? And also, where would you like for the game to end? To answer the question myself, I think Game 2 has to end with Aerith dying, which means they have to cover a lot more ground than what they covered in this first game. I don't think that they should be going for 4 or 5, 6 games in perpetuity. I think that's just a bad idea. I think at that point, the story pacing for this for this one game that has been expanded into multiple, if you go into 5 or 6 games, even 4, honestly, 4 is probably too much. So I mean, anything under like a trilogy has to be it. Like that just it has to be it. Because I feel like if you're going into something that's like greater than a trilogy, then at that point, it becomes too much.
Well, and you already have fans that are kind of saying that they're milking this anyway, being a multi-part game. Imagine if it's 4, 5, 6 parts. People's interest levels are going to start slowly tapering off towards the end. So, from a fan's perspective, I would think they would want the minimum amount of games as possible with the most amount of content.
Right. So with that being said, where do you guys want the next game to end? And do you think it will actually end there?
So I agree with you. I think a good ending would be the Aerith thing. That's kind of something that like we know it happens. New players may not know it happens, and they may know anyway. But if you hit them with that ending, you are going to have people come back for part 3.
Yeah,
like, it is. I think that positively impacts your sales to have an ending like that.
Oh yeah,
because people are going to see that and they're going to be like, I want revenge. I want to know what's going to happen now, because the white mage is gone. The girl that you spent 1 disc in the original getting to know, now you're getting to know her through 2 full games.
Exactly.
So ending it right there, I think, would be the smartest from not only a story perspective, but from a business perspective. Do I think it's going to end there? Maybe. I don't know where there's a splitting point of this series that would be proper for like a climactic ending, because you don't get much more climactic than Aerith. I mean, that moment is the turning point of the whole story.
Right.
So where do you really cut this off? Because Junon doesn't really make sense, because it's kind of lighthearted. You know, it's like Costa del Sol's really lighthearted. And you don't really want to end on that note. You want something compelling.
Right.
So I hope it's Aerith's death, but it could be maybe when you get to the mountain, like the Great Glacier. Could be around there where you find out more about Genova and the calamity from the skies and stuff. It could end there as well.
FishFriedCat, where are you thinking that it could end?
You know, I don't really know, because if, let's say, the Whispers dying opens up a lot of possibilities, I don't even know why the game would even go beyond 2 parts if don't plan to stay more faithful to the original story. Trying to lose my thoughts there, but
I get what you're saying, because they don't have to cover all the same ground anymore.
Yeah, so if you're telling an entirely new story, like I think that would be maybe 3 parts at most. I think would be the most you could push it. But if you're going 4, then you're probably not going to see very many sales on that one. But if assuming that they're going by like kind of faithful and they're going to hit all the big story beats from the original, I do think that Aerith dying would be a good stopping point.
Right.
Because I really can't think of any other way to end like a part 2. Like that's like the biggest. It's like the biggest part that happens probably in the whole game, other than maybe Cloud going into a coma and then finding out what actually happened. But part 1 kind of ruined that.
Right.
But like they constantly like drop, oh, you were never in Soldier, and then they kind of like play around with it, and then people who played the original, they knew, but when you got to Hojo's lab, it was straight up, I don't remember you weren't in Soldier or something like that. And then after the ghosts take them away, like those useless ghosts who can't do their job properly, they let Barrett die. They let Hojo reveal like a huge plot twist.
Yeah, that was weird.
Right.
They saved Wedge from dying and then put him into like, I guess, a Dirge of Cerberus dungeon.
Actually, yeah, it is.
Oh, yeah, like it like literally is. That's why it's hilarious.
Yeah, it's deep ground.
Yeah, it like literally is.
And what else? Like they needed to have thousands of those dudes just to sprain Jesse's ankle so the reactor could happen. The Sector 5 reactor bombing could happen with Cloud.
Right.
The most hilarious thing about the Whispers, though, is that when what was his name? Leslie, when he was going to attack the Don, because we all know the Don lives, like we see him in Wutai. And Leslie went to attack this man with a gun. The Whispers didn't even show up. They were just like, this guy's so incompetent. We don't even need to be here.
Yeah, dude, they were just like, nah, he's all right.
So that was a big.
Even
no,
the
dude. They were like, maybe it's okay if fate changes a little bit. Not too much, but just get rid of that dude, right?
They're like, we'll trade you Don Corneo for Zach.
Yeah, like done. So,
and then Leslie still couldn't even pull it off.
Nah.
No,
the arbiters of fate were like, fucking doubt.
No, we need the Don for Wutai when he straps them up on that mountain, and then you get the cool moment with the Turks because they're off duty.
More like Don Chad.
Yeah.
Don Chadneo.
Okay, this is another thing that I want to ask you guys. This is like opportunity for a hot take.
Oh boy,
this is opportunity for a hot take. Chat, I'm also going to be reading your replies to this too, because I think this is pretty juicy, and no one's really discussed this. And as soon as I ask it, you'll know why. Do you think the Whispers are actually gone? Yeah, no one wants to answer that shit. No one wants to answer that.
I want to say no.
Yeah, because we're all under that impression, right? That the Whispers are gone. Like, we're all under that impression.
I feel like if Fate is truly dead, then yes. But at the same time, if the planet can create whatever it wants at any time, the weapons, the plot ghosts, whatever, what's to stop them from remaking them?
Right.
I mean, is there like a time process? Is there there's no rules to why they exist in the first place. So if you don't have rules to establish what is there, then they could really just bring them back at any time and make it convenient for them. Or even make new weapons. I mean, we've already talked about the weapons a little bit, but maybe there's going to be new weapons. The compilation brought in new weapons that nobody'd ever heard of.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what's to stop the planet from doing it again?
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, wow. Hold on. FishFriedCat just disconnected. Okay, he's back.
There we go.
He's back. Okay, I was like wondering, like, because like where it froze, you were like fixed in like this grin, and I was like, dude, he's been like grinning for like a good ass minute now. I was like, I want to know what he's laughing at. But
I don't. So what's the hot take? That's
yeah.
What's the hot take question?
The hot take. Oh, you didn't even get that part before you froze. Oh wow, that's crazy. The hot take question was: do you believe that the arbiters are really and truly gone? No. I agree with you, but I want to hear your thought process on why you don't believe they're gone.
If they were entirely there just for the developers to say we want to be free, that is the smartest thing I've ever thought of. I can't believe how genius these developers are, because man, that would be such a good plot point if they were just there just to say, okay guys, we want to be free, we don't want to be restricted by the original story, we want to spread our wings, so we're going to introduce these time arbiters of fate, and then we're going to introduce them for one game, and that's it. They're not going to come back. They're not going to have this big old oh, you can't actually change destiny little story. They're just gone. So we got a completely new game.
Yeah, like why would they go through all that trouble to create them and then they're gone? And then like I guess in like what, part 2, part 3, we get like a giant exposition dump on them. So like, yeah, I can't imagine that. I can't imagine. Yeah. So I'm on board with you.
So here's also my thing. If they, I also find it like equally as silly if they come back and the whole message was, oh, you can't change fate, you can't fight fate all this time. Then that time where we killed him in part 1, and then the time in between where we get to do whatever in the story, like they still got to make their changes before they come back to clean up everything.
Right.
And I feel like they could be shoehorned in conveniently if the writers need them to be. That's why I didn't like them in the first place, but we talked about that already. Right.
Because we still don't know exactly how they work. And I know that they don't want us to know how they work, but it leaves it obviously it kind of makes people not like them. The thing about the arbiters is that everyone assumes that we defeated them and they're gone. And a lot of that is because people don't want the arbiters to come back. Whether you loved Final Fantasy VII Remake and all of its changes, or you sort of hope that they kind of course correct. Everyone's like, for the most part, everyone's in agreement. You either you like what the arbiters open up, but you don't like the arbiters themselves. I haven't met anyone who actually thought that the arbiters themselves were something great.
The most common comparison I see is the Dementors from Harry Potter.
Right.
Like,
I see that a lot too.
Like, we don't mind the concept, but get those Dementors out of our game.
Right. Yeah. Like a lot of people are looking forward to the result of it going off into the sequel territory, and not that the actual ghosts themselves are anything great. And I think that's how the majority of people feel, whether they like or dislike the ending and the new direction. Jesus Robo says, yeah, good idea, poor delivery. And that's exactly, I think that's the general consensus, like whether you like the new direction or not. The general consensus is, yeah, good idea, poor delivery. I think that's a perfect way of putting it. Here, tailing off of what FishFriedCat said, here's why I think that they're going to keep the arbiters in Final Fantasy VII Remake 2. Not only what you were saying about how they already built this concept up and they introduced it, and it'd just be weird if it just never showed up again, and then all we got was just this big exposition dump in part 2 about it. I think that they actually built the Arbiters of Fate to actually be that sub-in for the Sephiroth boss fights that we're supposed to be getting, right? So the Arbiters combined with Sephiroth were these sort of final boss. Killstitch693 says that's not the consensus about the Arbiters. Is it not? Chat, let me know. Did you actually love the ghosts themselves? I'm not talking about that you love the possibilities or that you like where you think the story might go or any of that stuff. I'm talking about did you actually love like the Arbiters themselves? Like I'm not talking about like did you think that the Arbiters were like are you excited for the result of the Arbiters being defeated? Yeah, okay. Yeah, a lot of people said that they were cool, but the majority in the chat is saying they hated them so far that I'm counting. But anyway, yeah, they were annoying. I hated them. Yeah, so I'm seeing a lot of that. Very strange addition. Yeah. So again, I like that. This guy R6 says I like them to begin, but then by the end they became stupid. Yeah. So again, I think the general consensus is that whether you like the ending or you like the new direction and you like the sequel territory and the meta commentary that they were making, the actual ghosts themselves were kind of weirdly delivered. Tailing off of that, though, I believe that the Arbiters are not gone. The Arbiters are probably going to come back, and I think they're actually going to be stronger than they were in the first game. And Fate is going to have like that gorilla grip. Fate is going to be like, you tried to change me last time, but it's not going to work. And so
watch them come back in the middle of Aerith's death and be like, gotcha.
Oh, they're going to be the final boss again. 100%.
So are you saying that the Arbiters are going to come back stronger and they might actually break Jesse's leg next time?
Yeah. They're going to snap.
They probably can't break it any more than the tower did.
Yeah. Yeah. But honestly, wait, I just realized what you said. It's but really though, honestly, I think they're going to come back, and I think they're going to come back with a vengeance, and they're going to be stronger than ever. Because what have you been debating, right? Like, who is going to be the final boss of Final Fantasy VII Remake 2? Like
Genesis.
Oh god, no, please.
There is at the current rate, I see 4 possibilities actually. The first, Sephiroth again, the Whispers again, Genesis, and the 4th possibility is something wild out, is that they introduce another villain just for part 2.
Use Rosh.
I could see Roche, honestly, because they said he's coming back, and he felt a little bit left to desire in the first one.
Yeah. I genuinely hope that he is the final boss of part 2, and I hope that they inject some Genova cells at them. Peachy Tima says that Genova still exists. Yeah, they could totally just put a Genova boss fight in there.
Well, actually, right after Aerith dies, we have the Genova fight. So
yeah. So but is a Genova fight going to be climactic enough to leave off on? Considering how many times, I mean, just throughout the game alone that we fight Genova, but
Genova never felt like end game material to me.
Yeah, also is a Genova boss fight? Is that going to is just another Genova boss fight? Is that really going to stack up to fighting the biggest bad guy who has Genova cells, Sephiroth, or is that going to stack up to fighting Fate Incarnate?
I think.
Right.
Since Genova's not a character that we really get emotionally involved with like we do with Sephiroth, I think maybe from an emotional standpoint, maybe not. But I think watching in full HD, by the way, Aerith dying and then having the cause of that right in front of us where we can take out that frustration on it, I think it might make for a more enticing fight.
Mm.
But I don't necessarily know if it will top Sephiroth and Fate from a visual standpoint, if you know what I'm saying.
The spectacle, right? Because if they step down, it in the end it's going to feel like, oh, like this didn't deliver quite the same strong impact. But I actually prefer what you're describing, where it ends on that note where you fight Genova after Aerith dies, and then it's like this super personal fight because he just took your queen from you, bro. Are you gonna let Sephiroth and Genova get away with that? And then of course I guess Genova stays there. You fight Genova, and then Sephiroth is like 7 seconds until the end, and then he like F's off again like he did in part 1. And then Hollow 2 plays. And then and then that's basically like what happens. Hollow
2.
whatever the theme song is. By the way, like Hollow almost seems like that. I was kind of surprised by that song because it almost seems like the Aerith death song, doesn't it?
Slaps.
It slaps
hard.
It slaps.
It's almost like a foreshadowing of her death, though. Really. Yeah,
and if you like read the lyrics, it almost describes grieving her loss, which is so strange because it's the first game, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I almost feel like the big plot twist that's going to come with part 2 and like all this time travel multiverse Fate Destiny stuff. I almost feel like we're gonna find out that Aerith is like literally been dead like the whole time, and she's like
Sixth Sense.
Yeah, and she's like astral like projecting herself into. But this is like crackhead theories. We're not gonna go that far into what could be. We need to stay within reasonable bounds. Otherwise, we start chasing wild goose, and at that point, I think you sort of like find the wrong eggs. It's a terrible comparison.
I don't know. I kind of hope it gets really ridiculous to the point where it's just stupid. I genuinely hope it goes there because that's what I love. And if they're going to make like these bold changes to the game, I want them to go all out. And not quite like Kingdom Hearts level of stupid, but I want them to just go all out and just let their imaginations run wild.
Right.
Just screw it at this point. I want to see what they can do.
Yeah. They can't go back to telling FF7 as it normally was. I don't think people actually realize that they really can't, because even if they do, a lot of the building blocks aren't the same anymore. Like Hojo sort of exposing to Cloud that, hey, you weren't an soldier. Like him just doing that like alone changes the dynamic. Misled In, thank you so much for the bits. They say, think it's going to be like .hack games. Not all games end with a huge climactic fight. Like, yeah, there is one big fight, but I think the next game will end leading up to the next story-wise. Not so much climax.
Part 1 would have been a great moment for like not a big climactic fight, but you had Motorball and then ended with Rosh. And like maybe you can start Rosh with, your full party and then just goes down to 1v1. I thought that's how it was going to end because it really didn't need to go all out for the end of part 1.
Yeah. Actually, I feel like they went too far out for the end of part 1 because now it's like how do you top that? It's such a strong note to leave off on. But like I said, like I'm so much more down for the idea of having that bittersweet Genova fight with after Aerith dies. But we don't even know. But like I was also saying though too. But the building blocks aren't even the same anymore. Like for example, like the build up to Cloud being revealed that he's not actually in Soldier. I mean, you already know that in the first game now. Hojo tells you. And honestly,
hit me.
yeah. Wow, it really hit him. It hit him so hard that he froze. Oh my god. FishFriedCat, no. FishFriedCat, we lost him.
We'll fix it in post.
Yeah. Yeah, that's okay. We will keep going. Let me see if I can. Let's see. Okay. We'll hide him until he comes back. But they really can't they can't do the same types of events and lead them up to the same reveals that they had before. Oh wait, he's coming back. He's coming back. Oh wait, let me put him back in. He's back. He's back. Boop. Hello, FishFriedCat.
Hello.
Little connection problem. You were going somewhere.
Yeah, regardless of if Genova, I actually kind of hope Genova's the final fight for that one, because if you think about what they've been doing with the soundtrack for 7 Remake so far, like for example, taking Rufus's theme, mixing it with one of the battle themes, and then Shinra's theme, and like what the composers could do with Aerith and maybe Genova's theme, or what version of Aerith's theme they could compose for that fight to make it really hit even harder than it did.
Oh, that'd be so good. That'd be so good.
Yeah, I think they definitely need to keep her song playing instead of a battle theme when you're fighting Genova, because I think that's what really, not only her death, that moment, but I think the song playing keeps the player in a grief mode while still having to focus on this fight. That is, yeah, I mean, it could kill them too, but it's really making the player think about what just happened while they're trying to focus on a boss fight. And I think they need to keep that in there.
Yeah, I was reading this comment by, is it Maddie Wine, that says, FF7 R2 will be a massive success in my book if they make me care about Kate Sith.
Hey, you should already care.
that was
Maddie. I don't know how to put this. You're probably going to be disappointed.
Yeah, they can make me care about. Should be Kate Shi, but we're just gonna call him Kate Sith for the sake of not calling him Kit Shi. But eventually, we'll have to call him that, which is a reality that I'm not ready for. But it's something we are indeed gonna have to deal with. Make it M-rated and murder Kate Sith.
What is wrong with you?
Make it M-rated for sure. Do you guys think the party will get new outfits? Every mainline sequel redesigns the cast. This question was asked by Talon134. Oh, that's actually a juicy question. Talon, I would love that actually, because I mean, okay, if we're going into like the sequel territory and it's really gonna be a sequel, like, go ahead and change Cloud's clothes, right? Like, I mean, just go ahead and do it. Like, when you guys like want to see like a new like Cloud, like new designs for like the whole squad, I think that'd be cool.
I want to see the chat stop talking about Kate Sith's death. What the hell?
Okay, let me see if I say this right. First of all, TTN Chris 1995. Sorry, TTN Chris 1995. Okay, same question. But where do you think part 2 will end, knowing the size of part 1, and SE's using PS4 as the main console release rather than the PS5? If it's the same volume, then it really concerns me on how many parts there'll be, especially if they expand everything. Dude, they gotta hit the ball running. Like, they gotta hit the, like, it has to be running, like, hard. I mean, I
still say City of the Ancients.
I mean, because if they don't, dude, then this thing is going to take forever, like 5 or 6 games. And Kitase has said that he's willing to like spend his whole life, like the rest of his life and career, working on these Final Fantasy VII Remake games. But you guys know what that means, right? It basically means no other Final Fantasy will ever get remade. Because even if Remake is like a smashing success, I mean, they're basically going to have to do this with like every Final Fantasy game, right? But even then, like this goes back to what I was saying, like remaking Final Fantasy VII is hard. Making a sequel to Final Fantasy VII is hard. And both of those things are like the hardest thing that you could do. And so now you have to make a remake and a sequel to Final Fantasy VII. And if they keep expanding everything and keep expanding into the sequel territory, is the remake part of the remake sequel going to suffer? Didn't Nomura and Kitase say they were remaking 7 before they retire? Could have sworn I read that somewhere. That's from Peachy Tima. So
I believe Kitase, like you said this was his like life's work or whatever.
Yeah, Kitase is probably retiring. Nomura is not. Yeah, he has not hinted at a retirement plan. He's still going. In fact, he's the youngest of the original squad, and he's mentioned that a lot too. And it was actually very depressing to hear him basically say that we need to remake this game before we die, and like leave it sort of as like their legacy. So, yeah. That's who's gonna take over as producer after Kitase. That's a good question. I'm not sure. I'm sure they have like a lot of candidates for who they would have take over him.
I could see Toriyama.
Yeah, I could see Toriyama too, but they're close in age though too, so I can imagine them retiring at the same time.
Yeah. Yoshi P.
Yeah, and they can't have. Actually, yeah, you know what? You're right. You're completely right. In fact, I feel like 1,000% confident Yoshi P would probably take over for Final Fantasy as a brand, which should probably happen
gladly.
Yeah, which should probably happen tonight. Like.
Honestly, that'd be okay. I love Yoshi P. I think he's a great director. I think he's got a good head on his shoulders. I think he could run that company and do really, really well.
Yeah. Because, he's made the most universally acclaimed Final Fantasy. And, because Shadowbringers is higher rated than Remake or any other Final Fantasy. Go on, FishFriedCat, sorry.
If you ever watch any of the Final Fantasy 14 FanFest streams and you see Yoshi P like interact with the crowd, I remember there was a lot, like his big thing is he'll wear shirts that hint like at the next racer class that's coming in 14, and the fans caught on to it. So I think like for Shadowbringers, he just wore one with Bugs Bunny. And like he kept messing with the crowd, acting like he didn't know what they were cheering about. And like the Bugs Bunny was on the back of his shirt. He'd keep turning around. Crowd would keep cheering. He goes, "Why are you guys cheering so much?" And like just that to say, this man knows his community. Like he knows how much. Like he's also a fan of Final Fantasy. I think he would be pretty great to take over for that. And like he's so laid back, because I think there's this thing where on there are other live streams where he won't even tell like anybody else what he's going to reveal. He'll just have like these art cards and just start revealing stuff as the stream goes.
I feel like he's a guy that just really loves what he does, and he loves his community a lot. It's
that whole 14 team, like you can tell they love their job. And that's what mainly keeps me with Final Fantasy, is just knowing that there's those devs who are especially so community oriented. And it doesn't seem like it's because they have to, it's because they're genuinely interested. So it would be great to see somebody from that department kind of take over.
Yeah, because the most well-received Final Fantasies since Final Fantasy X are Final Fantasy XIV Heavensward and Final Fantasy XIV Shadowbringers. Those are the most well-received Final Fantasies. Even Stormblood was probably more well-received than 13, 15, or 7R for that matter.
Which is
especially
so
in
weird.
terms of critical review. Yeah, it's so weird. When we think about the future of Final Fantasy, 14 or just MMOs in general is kind of the future of the series at this point, in terms of the top of the line quality. And, it's very weird, and I already know that I probably upset like a whole bunch of Final Fantasy people. I'm sure that whenever I upload this to YouTube, I'm gonna have a whole like crap ton of comments that are just like, Final Fantasy 14 is MMO, don't count as the main line, and blah, blah, blah. But dude, it's the most it's the most well received. They're so niche though. Are you this is what someone Schlardinger's baby seal says. They're so niche though, it's hard to compare an MMO to an action RPG. Dude, a lot more people played Final Fantasy 14 or play Final Fantasy 14 than Final Fantasy VII Remake.
I think more people play 14 than the sales of 15 and 7 Remake combined, right? It's like 16 or 17 million players right now. Yeah, maybe even higher.
Yeah, it's one of the most played MMOs. JRPGs are niche in general, so that's another thing too. Final Fantasy 14 is like super mainstream. Yeah, like FF14 is like the most played Final Fantasy game probably ever. So yeah, I can't agree with that. But going back to my point, I think he probably would be the one to take over as producer. It's interesting because it makes you wonder how, because they're going to be developing Final Fantasy VII Remake 2. And then they're also going to be having all this other stuff going on. Nomura is going to be developing Kingdom Hearts, whatever spinoff will be next. And I wonder how they'll be able to manage this long term, which is why I think they were outsourcing it. Mislit in, thank you for the bits. I just wanted to note that Yoshi P was originally Dragon Quest X MMO guy. Let that sink in. Yeah, he's actually the Dragon Quest guy. The Dragon Quest guy took over Final Fantasy, and he's the one who sort of made Final Fantasy take off in that aspect. Red Irish Wolf, thank you for the bits. Appreciate that. So yeah. Anyway, but yeah, it honestly makes you wonder how they're going to balance developing Final Fantasy VII Remake 2, the next Kingdom Hearts game, but then also someone's going to have to be working on Final Fantasy 16, and then someone's also going to have to be working on all these other projects, right? And this is like, this is Division 1. They changed their name now. It's like Creative Unit or something like that or another. But for general purposes' sake, or for all intents and purposes, whichever phrase is correct, I don't know. I don't English. They're tied up, bro. They're super tied up, and so they can't make FF7R games in perpetuity for forever. They need that A team to also be working on multiple things, which is why they originally outsourced the game to CyberConnect 2 in the first place, is because they need those A-list members free. So in terms of Final Fantasy VII Remake going into 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games, it's like they can't do it. They have to have that ball rolling.
Well, and the thing is, if this is the sequel, it's also the 5th part of the compilation, they don't really need to go that far if they don't want to. Yeah. Like, if they have a general guideline of where they're going to go with this, which is debatable if they know or not. But, like he was saying earlier, they could make it 2 games and then move on to what it is they need to move on to, because Nomura is going to be doing Kingdom Hearts games and Kingdom Hearts 4 eventually. So eventually this is going to have to wrap up. It's going to, you can't spend the next 15 years making Final Fantasy VII Remake games, because your other projects are going to suffer for it. And we already know with Kingdom Hearts 3 that when Nomura is on multiple projects at once, it's hard for him to balance and get all of those out in a timely manner. So like you said, they're going to have to wrap this up within at least, I think, 3 games because of that.
Yeah. There's, I mean, if they go even beyond that, I feel like it's just going to be, first of all, I think that people will sort of begin to drop off. Because this is a common problem with Final Fantasy sequels anyway, is that there's a huge drop off from one game to the next. I don't think that 7R will suffer from it nearly as bad as like 10-2 and like Lightning Returns did, which sold, I think both Lightning Returns sold only like 1 million when like the original 13 sold like 6. And then 10-2 did pretty good sales wise, but I think it sold like the original 10-2 still sold half of what the original 10 did. I think that 7's drop off won't be nearly as bad, but it'll still have drop off. I can't imagine Game 2 selling more than like Game 1. Yeah, I can't imagine.
Look at the compilation itself. Final Fantasy VII is the highest selling single player Final Fantasy ever, right? Crisis Core sold like what, 3-4 million copies? And it's got Final Fantasy VII attached to it. Remake's only sold 5 million so far, registered anyway that we know of. Is part 2 going to sell as well? Is it going to sell more? The entire compilation itself didn't really sell that well other than the base 7. So going with that, people are going to be, I think a lot of people dropped off because of the multiple parts thing. So I expect more and more people to start dropping off as this thing releases. And that's another reason why it's got to be 3 or less.
Gaming World Unlimited asked a pretty interesting question here. If they had to cut things from the OG to make it less parts, what would you want dropped? There's nothing major. I can't say that there's anything I want dropped from the game personally, but I will say that I think that there might be stuff that they will drop. And I think that they're going to actually use the sequel territory to justify why certain things get abridged. Originally, they said that, the multi-game structure was so that nothing has to be cut. But I can't see. I don't know how, if they keep the same pacing that they did for this game, for the next game, I can't see how they'll finish this game or finish this story within any reasonable time. Because basically, I mean, they're gonna have to abridge like a lot of stuff. Even if 2 more games that they're going at the same rate. So then at that moment, they're gonna have to make part 2 and part 3 tremendously bigger games. Like I'm talking about, they're gonna have to be like much larger games. And I would like to see something personally, if I was to say, I want to see something that has some big zones in it, and us traveling between these big zones and these massive locations. I don't think that I'm going to tell you guys right now, I don't think we'll fly an airship. Actually, I feel like it's just going to be a menu.
Yeah, I think it could be also because they travel. They like to do streamlining stuff now. They don't like to, like back when it was lower res and all that stuff to fly around, it wasn't that big a deal. But now that you're going to be rendering a full airship, it doesn't seem like they're going to use it for travel. You're probably right. I think they're going to streamline it into a menu.
Yeah, because the only way to do an airship now with the modern graphics is to do it like Final Fantasy 15 does, where it's a truly persistent open world and the data is constantly being streamed as you moved. And the only way to make that possible, again, would be for them to build an open world. Chat saying like Final Fantasy X. Like Final Fantasy X, basically. Because in order for them to build that, they have to have an actual persistent open world where data is like being streamed as the player moves. One comment says, and I'm going to address this because I know it's going to be something that a lot of viewers, especially those of you who are watching on YouTube, are going to want to say. The Great Set says, possible on PS5. I don't think that they're going to make Game 2 PS5 exclusive. They could. They honestly could. I just don't know if they will.
I think 115 million install base is way too big a number to ignore.
Yeah.
To just go next gen, because not everybody's going to transition even in the first few years. And a lot of people just bought PS4s to play remakes. So business wise, doesn't make a lot of sense to be PS5 only.
Yeah. I can't see it because it would sell a lot less. Go on, Fish Fright.
So is Airship really like probably with the current dev team, just considering how like super linear part 1 was? Soldier, you played Just Cause, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, so you know how like they have huge open world and actually kind of, from what I can remember, detailed, and a lot of the game is just either going by like your parachute or flying around. I wonder why like theoretically Final Fantasy VII Part 2, 3, whatever couldn't do that. And I know that for 15 they did get the Just Cause devs to help with the airship, which kind of didn't feel right because, you know, the airship still felt like it was on rails when you were flying around in the regalia. But I'm wondering if they just like have plans to build an open world, like that should technically be possible. If like PS4 can already do it with Just Cause, which isn't an ugly looking game.
Here's my thing though about airship travel. If they're going to have it in part 2, how do they tell you that you can't go to certain locations? They'd have to be on the map, right? Like, let's say the game only goes to Temple of the Ancients, for instance, or wherever. You legitimately could not.
Right. You'd have to fly over.
Yeah, like now I understand like in the original when you couldn't go to the Northern Crater, it was because you had to get the cannon to blow the hole in it. But now it's like, how do you have only a partial open world and still simulate that there's this other expansive areas that you can go to? Like,
Part 1
I just don't see.
Part 1 wasn't afraid to.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Part 1 wasn't afraid to have like the invisible walls and turn you right around. Like it'll be a little goofy if you do it in an airship, but they could still probably do it that way, because Part 1, if you tried to go off somewhere where the game didn't want you to, you'd get some dialogue. You'd probably have Sid yelling at you or something. Hey, that could be funny, actually.
It would feel kind of cheap, though, to have the airship and not... You know what I'm saying? Like, I think it would be hard to lock certain things away.
Maybe by game 3, like, when you get the high wind or something, because, like, when you start off, you still get, like, that buggy, and then you get, like, the tiny Bronco, which can only travel by sea. I'm sure there's going to be some kind of progression before like the game opens up entirely.
Right. Baby Seal said you don't get an airship until after Aerith dies anyway, so it's the third part's problem. Yeah, but they have to start if they're going to build like a persistent open world where those things can happen and that you can go back and visit those locations. They actually have to start building those assets and that technology right now. So it's not a second or third parts problem. It's something that they have to address like from inception of the process of the project, because of the way the assets and code are shared. It has to be implemented in there. Otherwise, if they don't, they will have to they will be majorly effed when they go back to try to re-implement that.
Now,
because it will not work.
I do think, though, that we could see other vehicles besides the airship, since obviously if it ends at Aerith's death, we could get is it the buggy, I think? No, or is it that later? But like a bike or something for fast travel, or something that you can physically travel yourself on. So like maybe a bike or something, like a motorcycle could be implemented in part 2. But I mean, they did the chocobo thing in part 1 and they streamlined that basically into a menu. And that's why it kind of makes me think that every other vehicle travel will be in a menu.
Yeah. Because I mean, theoretically, I don't see what's stopping you from actually like riding a chocobo through Midgar, right? Because they're right there, and people clearly. I mean, the fast travel implies that you use the chocobo, well, like in a carriage, but I mean, like, really, what's to stop you from Shinra? I mean, it's the slums, right? I don't know. But in either case, nothing technically there is there to stop you from, per se, riding a chocobo. It was just not a feature that they wanted to expand upon at that time. And I really don't blame them. Of course, of course they'll bring chocobos back. That's not even like they definitely will. And I'm sure you'll be able to ride them across the world map. But I just can't see them. I can't see part 2 being a true open world, which I know that some people are expecting. Although I think most people are expecting something like Dragon Quest XI style zones, like Final Fantasy XII style zones. The Xenoblade does zones the absolute best. Xenoblade, oh my god. Xenoblade's environments are amazing. If you guys ever played Xenoblade Chronicles, honestly, if it was Monolith Soft, this would be a duology. I feel like easily. Like I feel like that like Midgar would have been like one game with all these like massive zones and things to do with it, and then you would have had like the world, and time would stop for 9 seconds. No, I'm just playing. But you'd have all of Gaia that you can explore. FishFried got me. But you'd have all of Gaia that you can actually like explore and go around and do all that stuff. And then that would be it, right? I think with Square and their current team, I don't think that they can do a duology. I don't think they can fit their whole thing in there. Actually, I kind of want to touch on that because this is a good segue point. So in the Matty Wine again says most FF games are linear, which I kind of like. Unpopular opinion. A lot of my favorite games are linear too. The Persona series, which I stream here on this channel, I'm a big fan of Persona. And Persona games are definitely they're linear in the sense that you're fixed from one point to the next. But they're like wide linearity, and there's branching paths, and there's like alternative endings and stuff like that. So I don't think that linear or open world is the sort of debate that people think it is. I think instead of linear versus open world, what I ask the developer is, how are you structuring your linearity? How are you structuring your open world? Linearity can be good or it can be bad. Open world games, same thing. They can be good or bad. You can have a situation like FF15 where a lot of the map is sort of empty and there's nothing to do. And then you can have a situation like Final Fantasy 13 where it's just, you go straight. And if you ask me which one of those games or which one of those styles of worlds is more engaging, I can't say either one of them is more compelling, because neither one of them are how things should be properly done in order to engage the player.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. I think it's all about presentation, because like I always see the comparison of 10 and 13, and people say, well, you love 10, but you don't like 13 because it's linear. It's because I felt 10 focused more on the visual aspects of the world itself and not just the story being streamlined into one area. Whereas like 13 felt like, until you got to Grand Pulse, 13 was a very, very, very focused linearity. And a lot of the times the areas that you were on looked like you were actually on platforms. So for me, I didn't care for 13's linearity presentation, but I did enjoy 10's.
Let me get some of chat here. First of all, TTN Chris 1995. I want to thank you for the bits. I'll go ahead and take your question. How do y'all feel about them showing off compressed versions of After Midgard tracks in part 1? Like main theme. It feels nostalgia thirst. It feels like nostalgia thirst, then a dynamic impact feel like how it's used to demonstrate the open world you're about to explore in the original. I think it can happen, but with Midgard treated as its own zone, like Insomnia, kind of how I imagine it too. possibly Midgar being open when coming back to infiltrate. So basically, this is a music question. So how do you guys feel about stuff like that? Like, is main theme even going to hit as hard when you go to, the overworld map? And you already kind of heard it in like Sector 7.
You're right. Damn.
Is there anything you guys want to contribute to that? Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah. The way I answer it too is that I feel like playing the main theme in Sector 7 was kind of I don't want to say a bad call, because the theme that they composed was very beautiful. But yeah, it's not going to hit you in quite the same way as it did in the original, where when you step onto that world map and you hear that first dun 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 dun, like it hits. It
does. It's very powerful.
Yeah.
Although, I gotta say though that I think the way they handled Hollow at Sector 5 and then at the end, I did like the way they handled Hollow.
Yeah, that was very good.
So like, obviously hitting the world map in the original was really great because that song hit and you knew that the adventure was getting bigger. I think Hollow really hit for almost the same reason, but as in you just went through 40 to 50 hours of this game and you get that beautiful song playing at the end, and it really does make you see like this is just the beginning, and like what is waiting for us, you know what I mean, like after that.
Right.
Now, with the main theme, I feel like with how the music was composed and like how it just constantly kept you going, oh holy shit, like the music for 7 Remake is my favorite part. I collect video game soundtracks. You probably see it like over there, if whatever, but a lot of that on the shelf is video game soundtracks, and I'm no Alex Mukala, so I can't go into detail why everything like hits so hard like it does. I have full confidence in the composers that they could actually still get you to feel like they can make that moment hit right. Whenever you step onto like the world map or whatever it might be, because they'll probably just have like a really special arrangement of it. Who knows? This
is a cool idea here or I want to get you guys' feedback on. Tatelon134 says, what if there is an all-new remake main theme to symbolize the change in direction?
That'd be cool.
Yeah. I'm not opposed.
I fully trust Hamauzu to do it. Yeah. Fully trust him.
Yeah. As long as it slaps.
I think music... Yeah. And I think music's very important to storytelling in JRPGs, to the point where I consider the soundtrack its own character. So seeing how like godly they did with that soundtrack, I'd be all for it, honestly. Like, hit me with new music. I loved a lot of the new tracks that were in there.
They did so good with the soundtrack for part 1 that I don't have any doubt about the music of part 2. I like to. I think honestly, if they keep introducing newer tracks and not just reused ones from the original game, I'd love that too, because I think some of the new songs were just as good as the old ones. And Ronald Mayday, I want to point this one out. I just want Birth of a God to be an absolute banger. Completely agree. That is one of my favorite songs in the entire original game, and I really hope that song slaps, because that's one song I'm looking forward to a lot.
Yeah, that song is fucking amazing.
That and their new rendition of Listen to the Cries of the Planet literally had me emotional. Like, that 7 seconds to the end song was just beautiful.
Yeah, yeah.
I just want to say this because I want to steal your viewers for a second to remind people that Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel exists. And Final Fantasy VII Remake actually had a track that sounded like it came from Cold Steel. It was called the Valkyrie. It's when you're fighting the what's it called, like the gunner robot?
Oh, they actually renamed it the Valkyrie. Before it was called Heligunner, I believe.
A Heligunner. That track reminds me so much of Cold Steel that it's actually like my favorite track in the whole game. Like, you could probably say I bought this just to listen to it.
Yeah,
because YouTube doesn't even have 7 Remake soundtrack all that much.
Yeah, it's because they're busting people for it.
They need to stop that.
No, there's actually a question I want to go back to because I thought it was actually really interesting. It's one of those juicy ones. It was from your boy SV.
Hold on.
What did you say? Okay,
hold on to that real quick because Sappy Joker asked in all caps, "When are you playing Trails?"
soon. Maybe after I beat Heavensward and I go, but I'll take a break from 14 for a little bit, and then because we're gonna be playing through 14 live here on the channel, you guys might want to hit that follow button. But your boy SV asks, do you think they'll drop the word remake in the next game?
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna have. I think it's because Nomura already said that remake has 2 meanings. So I assume that part 1 is like remake is the subtitle for it, and like part 2 might be called reunion or
rebirth,
something. Rebirth.
That basically sounds like remake, but isn't remake, to let you know that it's not the first one, but it's something else. Yeah.
Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Yeah.
You didn't hear them say remake at the end of part 1? And they're all standing at the edge of that highway, the expressway, and Cloud goes, "It looks like we really are the Final Fantasy VII Remake."
Oh my god! Yeah.
If my camera cuts out, I'll leave on that.
No.
He'll be here all week, folks.
Oh no.
Canceled.
Peachy Tima has a really good one here. Do you think they'll delve more deeply into the Cetra and the Promised Land that Shinra seems obsessed with finding? I mean, they already kind of showed it. So, at this point, if they don't go a little bit deeper into it, I'll be slightly disappointed that they don't.
Same.
Same. Yeah.
I want Genova.
Yeah. I don't feel like I don't feel like it's something that they have to do, but I feel like if you're going to expand this much, why would you not? So yeah, I would hope that cutscene that they showed us wasn't for naught, and they're actually going to go into Cetra lore deeper.
So I actually hope that when they get to the part where Ifalna is telling Gast about Genova and everything, and like obviously I feel like in the original game, rendering that kind of scene where Genova is like doing all the things that she did back then, I feel like it might have been difficult back then, so it was easier to tell it through the text boxes. This time, when Ifalna is recollecting what happened, I really hope that they show us a scene like they did with the Shinra HQ, where they had like the Cetra and everything and them talking about it, but actually showing like a rendering of what Genova actually did to these people. Because I feel like the more you see Genova as like this terror and this nightmare for the Cetra, you realize just how big of a threat she actually is.
Oh, I got a juicy one here, you guys. This one comes from Jesus Robo again. Bugenhagen gonna be crazy this time. Do you think he's gonna know what's up with Sephiroth messing around, or is he oblivious? I personally find that it would almost be like it'd almost be strange, like if he didn't know or couldn't explain, right? I feel like if anyone has answers about the arbiters and stuff like that, like, wouldn't it be him? I mean, yeah, so I feel like he has to know. Like, he has to know. That's where I sort of expect to get all the exposition on the arbiter stuff is at Cosmo Canyon. Like,
So if we get that exposition, then do you think they'll come back in part 2? Like probably near the end? If they're just thinking about that, that actually sounds really plausible.
yeah,
I assume
and you know what? I think he's gonna foreshadow their return. Yeah, because I think well here's what I think. All right, he's gonna tell you about like all the crazy effects of what's gonna happen if the arbiters aren't there, and then I think they're going to see those effects, and then that's somehow going to lead back into the arbiters being fought again.
That's actually a really good point.
Mm-hmm. And I think
do we kill?
Yeah.
Do we kill them every time? Like every game they come back and it's the whole SpongeBob. How many times do we have to tell you, old man?
I got a question. You know what? That's going to be exactly like that. I got a really good question from Talon134. Do you think the planet is evil in the context of Final Fantasy VII Remake since it controls fate? you know the SpongeBob meme where he's like,
yeah, I've actually thought about this a few times. I don't think that the planet is necessarily evil. I think it's about self-preservation. So obviously humans have been detrimental to the world's health, right? The Gaia's health. Shinra has all but destroyed it. At the end of the original game and Advent Children and stuff, we see that scene where like nature has kind of taken over Midgar again, like the planet is taking itself back. So I want to say that no, I don't think the planet is inherently evil. I don't know if it has that type of mindset. Like it's not doing things just to do them because it has this ambitious goal or as it has some kind of plot against humans. I think it's just necessarily a self-preservation thing in a way that it's like allowing things to happen that would cause humanity to die out because the planet wants to take itself back. So I don't necessarily think it's evil in that sense. No.
FishFriedCat, did you have a response to that?
I'm more so actually interested in like what Barrett would think of all that, like if the planet, so like the original, like the 500 years later thing, all human life seems to be gone. It looked like it was just implied human life. I don't know, but Barrett.
Well, I mean, it had to be because Nanaki was there and the vegetation was there. So yeah, go on.
So is Barrett like that much like into the cause to just. Or actually, is he destroying all those reactors just to avoid the planet trying to kill the humans to get rid of like the parasite, I guess? I'm wondering, but I guess he failed in the original timeline. So
the way I feel about it is that the arbiters, weapon, all that stuff, those are like the planet's white blood cells. And basically, your white blood cells are like neither like, are your white blood cells like good? Like if you have, how should I, no, let me go back. Of course your white blood cells are good. What I mean to say is that, they attack things, right? But then sometimes your like a body's immune system can sort of fire off at like the wrong things, right? Which is sort of like why, if I'm not mistaken, I'm not a biologist, I'm not a doctor. Isn't that why we have like allergies, for example? Is because like our like an immuno response to something that's like, is that not why? I don't know, but suppose that it is, right? And that's the metaphor that's the metaphor. We're gonna pretend that I'm a doctor and I know what the fuck I'm talking about. But basically, yeah, basically it's like an immuno response, like misfiring, right? And so like obviously weapon and stuff doesn't exist to like attack or hurt the planet, but it's basically what the planet puts out to preserve and protect itself. And so obviously whenever the planet's will, in this case the planet's the timeline if we were to go back in time, the arbiters are what I imagine the planet's immunoresponse being to time travel, or basically the timeline being messed with. So, I mean, that's the way I interpret it. Is sort of the planet self-regulating itself from certain threats, and it can sort of make these things in order to fend off from certain threats, and that's why things like weapon, etc., exist. Is to, and the arbiters included, is to
self-preservation is definitely what I see it being.
Would you trust a doctor that's called the Night Sky Prince? Yes, probably a handsome, educated doctor.
Yeah. But you sounded so convincing, and I have no knowledge on that subject. All I do is make videos about lewd Japanese games now, apparently. So that's my specialty.
Let's take some more questions here. Chat, just keep them going, and we're just gonna keep taking your questions. Anything that has to do with FF7 R2, please keep it coming. Let's take another one here. Baby Seal again. Most rashes are overactive immunoresponses. Yeah, so basically going back to, I don't care if it's allergies, but white blood cells do attack the wrong thing sometimes. That comes from mistled in. Yeah, okay. So my analogy was on point. I did pay attention long enough in biology class in order for that to make sense. FishFriedCat there is getting a little cold. It's okay. These hot questions are about to heat him up.
I just want to look educated on the subject.
Thank you for calling me Baby Seal. Makes me feel so special. Oh, you're welcome, baby. Let's see.
You're the only one he calls that, I promise.
How important? Oh, this is a good one. How important will Wutai be in the next few parts?
Extremely.
Very.
I think maybe not to the overall narrative, but I think when it comes to their role in maybe the party's survival, or at least help in certain situations, I definitely think Wutai and Avalanche, for that matter, are going to be a big factor.
I agree. Let's keep going. Do you think that the series will end? At the end of the series, we'll fight Sephiroth at the edge of creation again, but to annihilate him from the live stream / timeline, so as not to haunt Cloud anymore, thus stopping the cycle of Sephiroth's return. Yeah, it's kind of what I imagine.
Hopefully it's without Zach, but
yeah, I felt it was a little weird the way they did that at game 1. I felt like that was possibly out of place, honestly. I really did not like how they executed the edge of creation in part. Putting that there kind of makes that little anticlimactic for me. But it becomes so hard to redo that scene with the same effectiveness. But I think they are going to try to redo it. Do you think now that Zack is alive, Cloud is going to be a completely different person, since Zack dying is the whole reason Cloud is the way he is at the start of the game?
No, because if we're really looking at alternate timelines, which we pretty much are, the Zack that we're seeing is not the Zack that is from the timeline that Cloud is currently in. So Cloud's character arc can still go the way that it's supposed to, but at some point, Zack is going to have to come into play at some point in the story. So, there's going to be a timeline convergence, or there's going to be something, but Cloud is still going to be Cloud, because I think if that were the case, we would have instantly seen a change in character when Zack appeared alive, but we didn't.
Yeah.
So, like I said, with the timelines thing, I don't think Zack living affects Cloud in that timeline.
Right. But they are going to converge.
Yeah, there's going to be a point where they're going to meet.
Yeah.
So.
And a lot of people don't think that. And for the people who don't think that, I'd like to ask you this question. How many stories do you know in multiple timelines where they don't converge? And I'm talking about not that they have multiple timelines in them canonically. I mean that where the story is actively telling you about two different timelines and then they don't converge. There's like basically no story like that, right?
Because there's really no point in extra timelines if those characters don't meet, because it makes you think, what is the point of another timeline if that doesn't mean anything to the story? And Japanese devs do not, I mean, they're losing their minds over a chip bag, telling us to pay attention to a dog on a chip bag. Japanese developers do not put something in as a reference and then not use it later or use it immediately after. That's something that they do as foreshadowing, and they set that stuff up.
That's actually why I'm excited for Neo Midgar.
You're excited for Neo Midgar. You're hilarious.
Yeah, look how it looks slick.
It does. It looks like PS5. I believe it said Kinade, something like that. Username says, how about intertwining story arcs and Zack meets Cloud at the edge of creation, finally ending Sephiroth once and for all? Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what's gonna happen. And not only that, I said this before. People think that it's a joke. I want to make it clear, I'm absolutely not fucking joking. Cloud and Zack are going to defeat Sephiroth with the blade made out of the life stream.
And friendship is their power.
Friendship will be their power. Yeah. Like I'm so like I'm like, this is like I'm like 9,000% certain of this. No one can unconvince me that I know that sounds cringe. And it definitely is cringe. But I'm like 99% positive that's exactly what they're going to do. I'm like 99.
I would have to agree. Yeah.
Yeah, I know everyone is like, God, no, please no. And I'm like, dude, I'm like,
but you know what's beautiful about this? We have found the line.
Yeah.
We have found the line they can't cross with the fans.
Yeah.
Do not let Cloud and Zack team up.
Yeah.
And beat Sephiroth. That's the line.
All right.
We've officially on this stream found the line.
Right. But okay, so let's think about it like this, right? And here's why FF7R is going. I got to go into attack mode. Here's why FF7R is going to end with Cloud and Zack defeating Sephiroth with the blade made out of the live stream. Okay, so you have two different timelines, right? The one in which our characters are in, and then you have the one where Zack is in, and those two things those two timelines have to converge. That's just how storytelling generally works, is that the two timelines have to converge. If those two timelines have to converge, where do they normally converge? At the climax of the story. That's normally where the timelines converge, or at least leading up into that climax. So if they're going to converge leading up to that climax, which is theoretically, if the story plays out as it normally does, and Cloud still has his identity crisis and goes through all that stuff, right? So then the timeline can't converge before that. So if that's the case, then it has to converge when they fight Sephiroth. And if it's
going, like the most likely point.
But if the timelines merge or converge, however you want to say it, I don't know English, but if they converge at that point where he fights Sephiroth, then it will be Zack and Cloud fighting him together. That's the only logical conclusion that you can make if Zack's alive. That's the only logical conclusion. So if that I know everyone's like, that's so cringe, but that's what they've set up. So what else am I supposed to? Anyway, so Ali D says, what if there are no timelines? The Ultimania disagrees. There are some people who, for some reason, for some godforsaken reason, I have a copy of an Ultimania for Final Fantasy VII, sitting in my closet right now, published and written by Square Enix. The Ultimania has more or less confirmed to us that there are timelines. Developer interviews have basically confirmed to us that there are timelines. So
here's actually my thought on the whole timeline thing.
Yeah.
The reason we know is because of the stamp, right? That's the big clue or the big mystery that everybody's trying to solve. Final Fantasy VII, when Zack dies, is about 1 to 2 weeks before the main game starts, right?
Mm.
When Cloud is found by Tifa, it's about 2 weeks. So that being said, the reason we know is because Shinra
2 months, according to Baby Seal here.
Is it 2 months?
Mm.
Shinra had, we'll say, 2 months to completely scrub the streets of every stamp logo that had ever been the old mascot, and it's to get rid of every single stamp, take that as their own, whatever. They would have to go across the entire city and do this. So they changed all the branding, all the graffiti, all the park benches, everything they had stamp on. And a lot of the stamps that are in the game look weathered. They look worn. They look like they've been there forever.
That's like changing the design of Mickey Mouse, by the way.
Yeah, they would have to completely change everything. And not once is there a mention in the game of stamp changing from one time to another.
Yeah.
Even in Zack's location to there. So there's no way that the two stamps could be in the same timeline because the branding would take forever to fix.
Yeah.
And to get people's hearts and minds to realize this is a different stamp.
Right.
It would have been brought up had there not been alternate timelines.
Yeah. And then the camera going like whoosh and then going like this and then putting it in your face for like a good couple of seconds and then going like that.
Yeah.
To make sure that you notice the stamp. Going back to my point though. So, Zack and Cloud at the edge of creation, fighting Sephiroth. What's the only way that you can escalate from what the original did and to sort of like eliminate Sephiroth, like in all of his incarnations and like banish him, right? So we can't just do the same old Omni Slash that we've always been doing. We got to do something big, right? And not only now it's not just the climax to one game. It's the climax to 3, 4, 5 games. So how do you power Cloud up and make him do the ultimate attack to banish Sephiroth from the live stream forever so that he can never come back? And like the only way I can think of to like power Cloud up to that point where he just like completely annihilates Sephiroth in all incarnations, like literally like destroying his soul or whatever.
Kinade asked, what if stamp is different depending on the marketing of the region it's in? So he is different in, say, in another continent. The problem with that is if that were the case, the developers wouldn't want us to specifically focus on that. Interviews after the game came out and after the Ultimania stated that, and even in the Ultimania, said that they want us to focus on Stamp and why he's different, not like, oh, this is a marketing thing. Both bags on Stamp say original, so it's you know it's still we're still looking at alternate timelines there.
It's the same Mickey Mouse, dude. And in America and in Europe and in Japan, it's the same Mickey Mouse. So I can't imagine like
could be
we got a different stamp in Sector 5 from like the rest of the world. Like what? Yeah.
Yeah, and the bag's right outside of Midgar too. Yeah. So it's not like, you know, the bag ended up probably there from Midgar. So we're definitely looking at alternate timelines.
Hear me out there. It could be a bootleg stamp chip bag, just like 7 Remake is a bootleg remake of 7.
Oh boy. Someone smashed dislike for that. someone, when this goes up on YouTube, so that's gonna be like the exact point where someone's like dislike. But yeah, Shinkai asks, which by the way, what's up, bro? Thank you for joining, Shinkai. Why are people questioning timelines? In-game information sets up time travel. That's a great question. And in fact, if you actually look at the Arbiters of Fate, if you look at their if you use assessment theory on the Arbiters of Fate, it tells you that they're from a different timeline. It literally tells you that they're from a different timeline. And so people are still arguing. I said, I don't think there's timelines. The game tells you. The game goddamn tells you that there are different timelines. Why are people arguing? Are there different timelines? The game says there are different timelines. And people are like, I got the hot theory that I don't think the game has timelines. I'm like, dude, it tells you. It fucking tells you. It's right there. Just use assessment theories on the Arbiters, dude. It will tell you that there are timelines. I mean, I don't even know what to say. Like, well, I don't really believe that the game is really telling us the truth. I think the developers are trying to assess material as an unreliable narrator. And it's like, dude, no, dude. There's timelines, right? There's timelines, and it's just like we have to deal with it. Like, but here is the telling thing, though. People, it's not that people think that there legitimately are no timelines, right? The reason, in my personal belief, the reason people are trying to explain this with no timelines is because they don't like timelines. And that's cool.
100% agree with that. I feel like there's a lot of things.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of things that people are saying isn't true about it because they don't want it to happen that way. Like Zack being alive. Zack's another thing. People don't want Zack alive. So
they come up with theories to explain why Zack can't be alive.
Yes, they come up with theories as to why the developers are lying to us.
Yeah. And it's like, and then, I mean, you know, and then they kind of look at us and then they're like, well, why are you being negative on it? And I'm like, dude, we're like literally we're looking at like what the developers gave us, and
the developers and the game. We're not trying to be like, oh, this is bullshit. No, we're just trying to tell you that this is what it says, what it presents, and what the developers tell us immediately about it.
Yeah. I
think I think headcanon is a really powerful thing, and I think people try to discredit things that don't go along with their headcanon. And unfortunately, in this situation, the developers are giving us everything we need to know.
Yeah.
Well, not need to know, but they're telling us stuff.
Yeah. I mean, like when the game literally says there are timelines when you use assess material on the Arbiters of Fate, and it says they come from it says they come from the future. There's no timelines. Like like how do you reconcile those beliefs? I don't understand. Pichitima says, speaking of the descriptions of the Arbiter bosses, what did you think of them being the embodiments of Tifa, Barret, and Cloud, and protecting the future that gave shape to it? What does description mean in the context of the boss battle? So, according to the Ultimania, and what's in the game, of course, meshes, because it's from the same company, which people disagree with for some reason. It seems more like they're Kadaj, Yazoo, and Laws. That seems to be a lot more. That seems to be a lot more likely. Baby Seal is pointing it out in the chat too. That they're more likely.
There's a lot of references to it because there's the twin guns that I believe Laws uses.
Yeah, their weapon names are all the same.
Yeah, their weapon names are all the same. They all, like in the movie Advent Children, they summon Bahamut, and in the game they become Bahamut. So it's like the references are there, the ideas are there, and if they are in some way, Sephiroth has been able to manipulate him through his powers in the live stream, then these three could be from a future where they are the ones that are coming back with Sephiroth, and he's using them because they are Laz, Kadaj, and Yazoo. So
yeah. Which is why, Radio Farron, I'll answer your question after this one, but because this one segues into what we were just talking about. Talon134 asked, would you be okay with the Advent trio, that being Kadaj and everyone, returning? At this point, why the hell not?
Yeah, I mean, if they could, here's the thing.
Yeah.
If they can write these characters compellingly, like they did with the characters in part 1, I don't care. I don't care as long as the writing is good.
No cap.
I just want the writing to be good. And I think any character could make it. Any character written well. If they completely rewrite Genesis, and they want to, well, but hear me out. If they want to rewrite Genesis,
they have to rewrite Loveless.
Yeah, they'd have. Yeah, if they were to rewrite Genesis even and make him a completely different character and write him in a compelling fashion, to me, I whatever they do with it, as long as it's written well.
Radio Farron asks, do you think we might get to explore the Golden Saucer in Remake? And well, yes, I'll tell you that. Yeah, there's no way the Golden Saucer won't be there. And if we do, we'll be able to see the play of Loveless. And if this timeline is where Jessie is alive, and we could see her as a princess in the play that I forgot the name of. Yeah, I can see it.
I forgot the name of that play.
Loveless, right? Wasn't she?
No. The one, she was the one. She played the princess in the play that Tifa and Cloud did in the Golden Saucer, I believe, or whatever date you got.
Oh, was that it? Okay.
Yeah, I think she was the. I think she was the play, the princess in that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Shinkei just pointed out. Well, there is V in Devil May Cry, is pretty much Genesis with better writing. Yeah. Totally agreed. I loved V in Devil May Cry 5. Yeah. And he's a very similar character to Genesis, but he was written really well in the narrative. If Genesis is written really well into the narrative, as long as he doesn't show up in Nibelheim, guys, by the way.
Yeah. He can't be written the same way that he was in Crisis Core, though. And
he's got to feel natural. He can't feel like an addition.
Yeah. Genesis was like, man, he was an insert for sure. Yeah, he didn't feel natural. Let's take some more questions and more stuff from the chat. Let's see. Xanax, so does that mean the Sephiroth we fought in Advent is does that mean the Sephiroth we fought is Advent Children Sephiroth? I'm inclined to say yes. Otherwise, how else would Sephiroth get the knowledge? I mean, otherwise you're talking about future Sephiroths communicating with past Sephiroth in order to... It just gets convoluted, so I say for sake of argument, the assumption should be that this is Advent Children Sephiroth.
Well, and if you think about it, think about the warning he gives Cloud.
Yeah.
Now, I think it's chapter 16's assessment thing that you can look at, like the story synopsis or whatever for that chapter. There's a part where they tell you that 7 seconds till the end means the moments just before Meteor impacts. So how would Sephiroth know that Meteor is going to happen if he's not already lived it?
Yeah.
If he knows that these things are going to happen, he's already lived it.
Yeah.
And that being said, too, chapter 17, there we go. In the Ultimania, there's actually a segment where it breaks down the different appearances of Sephiroth. And the first half is the Black Cloaks, the memories that Cloud has, and the hallucinations. But at the end, they have it in a red box with a question mark, signifying that this Sephiroth, which is the Edge of Creation Sephiroth, is the one talking as if he is a pre-Nibelheim Sephiroth, almost as if he's trying to gain Cloud's trust in the Edge of Creation and kind of get him on his side. So I think we're definitely dealing with multiple timelines. I think we're definitely dealing with multiple Sephiroths and a future Sephiroth that already knows exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Because he's lived it and he's seen it.
Like Baby Syl mentions that he slightly changes his I pronoun in Japanese. There's multiple ways of saying I in Japanese. There he says watashi, but normally Sephiroth says ore, which is like the more masculine form of I. And then, but the thing is that Sephiroth referred to himself as watashi, like during like the Crisis Core days, right? And then he switches to ore whenever everything else transpires, basically when the dude loses his mind and all that good shit. So there is that to clue us in that Sephiroth from a different timeline, perhaps past Sephiroth, disagrees with the future incarnations of himself while he's still good. That's like a pretty common theory. There's two questions I want to answer here. I'm going to start with actually the one that came after because it ties into what we're talking about right now. How certain are you that Sephiroth will be the actual final boss? I'm not.
I'm actually not either.
Yeah. Yeah, and it kind of makes me nauseous thinking that he won't be. If I'm being honest.
Can you imagine if they go some crazy shit where they're like, okay, well, Edge of Creation Sephiroth is actually the good Sephiroth, and he's gonna team up with Cloud, and they're gonna fight the evil Sephiroth. And when Sephiroth kills himself, kinda, I guess, he's actually finally able to be at peace because all of his life he's just been this terribly tortured character who started out as an experiment, and now he's finally putting himself to rest.
Right.
God, I just made myself throw up in my mouth a little bit saying that.
I was actually going to say, what if instead of Zack, it's the Watashi Sephiroth teaming up with Cloud, and then they're fighting the Ore Sephiroth, and then they still do the same live stream sword slash into. Oh man, look at the possibilities, guys. This is great. It doesn't have to be just Zack. It can be Sephiroth too.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, yeah, he could totally team up with Sephiroth too. But what I would predict him, Sephiroth, and Zack all team up. And that's like the ultimate.
I'm on board with that now.
that's like the ultimate fan service ending, right?
I just fried my own brain by trying to say all that.
Here's actually another good. Ha, got him. Here's another one that was this one actually was from a while back in the chat, but I wanted to hold on to it because I think it's such a good question. Lively O says, why do you think Rufus was able to see the whispers? And how do you think this will impact his role in the next game/games?
I actually have an answer for this, but I want to see what you two say.
You know what? I really ain't got no clue. I really just don't know. I really don't know.
So
yeah, I really don't have like a reasonable guess for why he can't.
If you want to know what my opinion on any of like the big theory story stuff that goes on in any game, all I care about, let's take Nier Automata for example. Prince, he'll love all the philosophical crap or whatever that's in there, like the big questions they'll raise. What I care about, how many bodies can you fit in this bad boy? That's all I care about.
Talon actually kind of made my point a little bit for me. He said he has probably touched Aerith before. Now, so that being said,
he could get in trouble for that.
Yeah.
Go on. Sorry.
I got my new ship, guy.
Yeah. So Aerith has always been kind of a ward of the state for. God damn it! Has always been kind of. We need to moderate ourselves.
I know.
So, Aerith has always been kind of this ward of the state for Shinra, right? And so she's always been in kind of this captivity, but she's always kind of run away. She's always kind of done her own thing, but she's always been in Shinra HQ around everyone. So, Hojo knows her, the president knows her, the Turks know her really well, and Rufus is the leader of the Turks. So Rufus has obviously met her once or twice. And when Aerith was a child, I'm sure that Rufus was obviously much younger, and maybe they played together as kids or whatever. And Aerith, when she touches people, they can see the whispers. So when she touches Cloud doesn't know anything about the whispers until Aerith grabs his arm, right? So at some point, Aerith must have touched, or even Ifalna. Ifalna could have touched Rufus, and now Rufus can see the whispers. So it would stand to reason that anytime that anyone comes in physical contact with a Cetra, they are then able to see these ghosts.
Ruler of Yore, thank you for the bits, and also thank you for the ones earlier that I didn't get to shout you out for because we were in that discussion. Says maybe they can pull a Nier Automata and have a self-destruct feature. I can think of a lot of people who would want that for Aerith and Tifa. But they'd have to push that M rating, and they won't do it. They will not do it. So
yeah, they won't release a M-rated Final Fantasy, at least in a mainline series.
Yeah. Type 0 is like a once-in-a-lifetime thing. Yeah, bring Tabby back. Tabby was bold.
Tabby's not afraid to kill anyone.
Yeah, Tabby would kill everyone in the game.
Didn't Tabby say he'd direct Final Fantasy VII too?
Yeah, he would say, he said I wouldn't direct Remake, but I would direct the sequel.
Here we go. He's coming back.
But yeah. Let's take some more questions from the chat. Let's see what, let's see. I think this Soldier, this is a good question for you. What do you think Hojo will do with Ifana's cells?
Oh, God.
Is he just that?
So I actually love that part because of how creepy they made Hojo. But I honestly think that I don't know if he's going to do anything with Ifalna's cells. I think it's more of a way. I think that was more of a plot device to get you to hate him even more. Because, like, in the original, you hated Hojo for what he did, but you really didn't get that many details about what he actually did to people, other than like the injection of Genova cells and the Sephiroth process. So I think that was more of a plot device to. I think they're using that. It's just a way to make him more evil sounding.
Again, Ruler of Yore, thank you for the bits. I was talking about Drag Cloud, but yeah, Aerith and Tifa are cool too. Yeah. Miss Cloud would be great for self-destruct. I want to go back to something, really good question Peach Tifa asked. What do you guys think of the Naki's assertion that the future they were seeing during the boss fight in Remake was a glimpse of the future if we fail here today? Which is what Nanaki said. I'm sure you guys remember. Does that give you any negative feelings about what the game is trying to assert about the original? I have to be fully honest. I hated that part.
Yeah, I didn't like it either.
Regardless of the context, I feel like it's just not, because it basically, like, they're implying that the original game was like that the original game is the bad timeline, and basically basically everything that you did there, you didn't save the planet. If you had any sort of like peace or fulfillment with the original game, that's sort of like, nah, it didn't really happen, dude. You actually doomed everyone and everything. So it makes you feel like all those memories you had of saving the world, you actually doomed the world, right? And that the planet itself like wants to be doomed. I don't know. It's like a weird feeling. And then if Advent Children and that scene that they played there was a direct copy and paste from Advent Children 2, which is kind of poor execution on a technical level. But yeah, no, Avid Children is definitely canon. I mean, because not only is this part of the compilation, chat, it's just I mean, it's part of the compilation, but obviously they used Advent Children scenes, like copy and paste. They didn't even they didn't even remake them. Yeah.
They didn't even change the Buster Sword in the scene where Sephiroth and Cloud like come together midair.
Yeah.
It's literally, what is it, Crisis Core?
Yeah, it's the Crisis Core Buster Sword, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the reason they used it was because you can only barely see the gold hilt for like one frame. So you have to like one frame pause it. But if you know that scene, then you know that it's there and you know to look for it. And it's just like, oh God. And
I'm just like, why couldn't they have remade that scene for the split? I know it's not a big deal, but it's a continuity error and it really bothered me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Seeing that sword, because I'm like, it's not the sword. Like
it's sort of like seeing that watermark for one frame in the Let It Go scene for Kingdom Hearts 3. It's like, yeah, I would have never saw that, but once I see it, I can't unsee it. It's kind of like, oh God.
It's like that cup in the Game of Thrones episode where it's a Starbucks cup in the background and you see it plain as day. And they never once saw that during editing and were like, maybe we should take this Starbucks cup out.
Yeah, basically. Kumikine says you'll remake the whole game, but not that scene. Yeah, especially with how important it was. I can imagine that rebuilding all those assets though was very time consuming. So I'm not being too critical on it. I'm more critical of the fact that they actually did it than how they executed it. But I think how they executed it wasn't particularly great. So that Talon134 says, so then are you saying that AC is a bad thing? If so, is it because Sephiroth will come back again? I'm not saying that AC is good or bad. I'm just saying that they executed it weirdly. Like, I'm not sure how I feel about how they executed that tie-in. But also, I just wouldn't have tied it in because Advent Children is a sequel and Final Fantasy VII Remake's the original story, and putting that stuff in there is... It's weird narratively to put that in there. Ruler of Yore, thanks again for the bits. I could see the name now. FF7 R2, Dawn of the Advent Crisis Dirge versus Bahamut Edition. Christy team again. Do you guys not want the cast to be given a second chance at Sephiroth stopping Meteor without having to doom humanity at the end? So if we're going with the Advent Children timeline, or with the retcon, I should say, because it's not a different timeline, it's a retcon. If we're going with the Advent Children retcon, which Advent Children starts off by playing the ends of Final Fantasy VII at the beginning, which takes place like 500 years later. If we're assuming that humanity was wiped out in that timeline where we see Nanaki opening the movie, if we're to assume that, then it couldn't be Meteor or Sephiroth or whatever, or any of that stuff, or unless it was the aftermath of the first game that eventually wiped out humanity. But it's not the direct cause that happened like right away. Because, so
after that, the developers, I think it was 2005 or 6, did an interview where they talked about the ending of the game and how it looked like humanity was wiped out. And I believe it's Kitase that says 500 years after the original game is when mankind goes extinct. And I think that's how they made AC and Dirge still be able to take place after 7, because they said that the ending technically is 500 years later. That it's, so like that way AC and DOC can be relevant and not technically be a retcon, even though it is.
Right. So basically, humanity is basically wiped out by something else other than the stuff that happened at the end of FF7. So
Maybe
and yeah, and maybe that's why they're changing the timeline. But to me, that just seems, I'm not really compelled by that idea personally. For ways, yeah.
So what I like about 7 is whenever someone died, they died. There was no bringing them back. You just had to move on from it. So I like the whole idea of whatever happens, happens. I think, didn't Cloud even have like a quote? Something, not something along those lines, I guess, but at the Northern Crater, they were saying, I think it was along the lines of whatever happens, we did what we could. Let's try to win this and go home or something. If not, then we tried our best. Something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually kind of like it too, because what I think that the humanity being wiped says, I think it says that we need to change our own timeline, right?
Yeah, I think it's a very powerful meta commentary,
right.
to be honest.
Yeah, it's saying that this is humanity's course if you don't do something, which I feel like is a more compelling message than if we can't do it, we'll just go back in time and we'll do it again, because we can't do that in real life.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, it's a catch-all at some point. It's like, if the characters don't feel the urgency of life or death, then how is the player supposed to feel the urgency of life or death?
Right. Ruler of Yore, again, thank you for the bits that you gave earlier. Real talk, though, what are the chances of Sephiroth becoming an ally against a bigger threat, and how did you feel about it? We kind of touched on it earlier, and
I threw up in my mouth a little bit earlier on
yeah,
it. So.
I hate it. I hate it.
I love it. Bring it.
You contrarian.
Like I said earlier.
Yeah.
Like I said, no. Like I said earlier, if they're gonna go crazy, they need to go all out.
No.
And I think the best way to go all out is not just Cloud or Sephiroth or Cloud or Zack, but it's all three of them together as Soldier.
Oh, they can be like that 10th anniversary logo. You know, where it's like Cloud, Zack, and Sephiroth standing together. That was a foreshadowing, dude. That was a foreshadowing. They knew. Nomura knew back then. He was like, oh yeah, dude. People aren't even going to suspect this. They're going to think that this logo is about Crisis Core. 10 years from now, when we drop Remake on them, dude, it's going to blow their mind.
You know, I actually just thought of something about Zack. So when Aerith tries to mention Zack in the playground and Cloud like has that freak out, you know, what's going to happen when you meet Zack's parents? If we meet Zack's parents, because they say his name.
Yeah.
They say.
Did you see? Did you see Prince's tweet earlier?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Windows
Cloud's
error.
gonna blue screen. That's what's
Cloud's gonna blue screen of death.
Yeah. He's just gonna he's gonna have a seizure like right there on their floor. He's just gonna like start like flipping out. But yeah. But let's see some more questions from the chat. I will take 3 more questions. And then we'll wrap this up. So if you guys can give me 3 good questions, I will pick 3 of them from all your questions. We'll answer that, and then we will call this a stream.
Wow, it's already 10 o'clock.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy, right?
Wow.
I know. We got some funny questions in here. Let's see. Diavon, thank you so much for the Prime sub. Will Kuncel finally have a face reveal? From Gene Garcia 123. He should. I mean, I would have imagined him having one in like Remake Part 1. Like that would have been the perfect place. But I wouldn't be surprised. I also wouldn't be surprised if they actually like made him into a real character, and then it tied into like the whole Rosh thing, and then like Rosh and everything like Basically, what I'm trying to say is that I won't be surprised if they do that, and I think if they expand on Rosh's role, then they'll make him into like a full character and design his face and everything, and they will tie him into Rosh's story for fan service.
I almost don't want them to show his face because it's like a callback,
Yeah.
like still wearing his helmet.
But that
You just see a scene of Kunsel in bed and he's like in his boxers, but he's still got the helmet on, so you can't see his face, like his sleep mask.
that does remind me of something I wish they kind of did more of in Remake that I really loved was Cloud's like sympathy towards Shinra, like all his old coworkers and everything, and how he would kind of step in for defense, like if somebody was bad mouthing Shinra too much, or like when he was first running into that grunt saw Cloud and he kind of froze for a second, stuff like that. I actually really wish they touched on that more. Would have been really great.
Let's see. We have 2 more questions. Let's see what the next one's going to be. Why were we seeing Tifa dying? I think it was just, if you read it on the surface level, I think it's just Sephiroth like doing that thing that he always does, where he's like, shall I give you despair? So
Yeah, I think a lot of it's, that, and I think like it's to show Cloud that there are bigger things at work here, and that maybe to give him the message that I can take anything away from you that I want, including your friends. So I think that's probably why. I don't necessarily think that they're going to kill Tifa, because I think that would be a bigger issue in and of itself than to just foreshadow it and then have it not come true. So I think it's really just Sephiroth showing Cloud that there are stakes involved in this, and that he needs to be aware that that's going to happen.
Last one from Baby Seal. This one's gonna round out the stream because I feel like this is one hell of a question. Baby Seal asks, is there any way that the meta plots, Whispers, Edge of Creation, Deep Ground could resolve in a way that would satisfy you? I'll start with myself here. I just want to say that Final Fantasy VII Remake launched 5 months ago. And before that, I had been playing it via my review copy, so a couple weeks before that, or a week or so before that. And so this game has been sitting with me for a long time, and almost we're actually today we're at exactly 5 months as the recording of this video, and even before I even got the review copy, I had sort of received some whispers of my own, people telling me like, hey, this might be like a sequel type thing. And I was like, oh no. But basically what I'm getting at is that I've thought about this for a long time. I've read every single fan theory, not every single one, but I've read hundreds now. I've watched everybody's videos. I've watched Maximilian Dude. I've watched Sleep Easy. I've watched a whole bunch of creators on YouTube that people have sent me. I've read people's Reddit theories. In fact, I was reading one before we did this stream. And to answer your question, no. There's absolutely nothing that has been written is satisfying in my point of view. No. All the fan theories and all the other stuff, like all the fan theories sound exactly like they all sound exactly like what they are, fan theories. They don't sound like good writing. They don't sound like something from a competent writer that actually delivers good messages and themes. They sound like fan fiction. The alternative to that, though, is that it could still be a good, enjoyable experience for me. It doesn't have to be bad, but it's not going to blow. There's no way in which the meta-narrative elements that they have here, they'd have to come out with something that I just could not have possibly have thought of, and that nobody who's discussing this, all the thousands of people that are discussing this, millions of people, Golden Oracle says, I personally disagree. Well, that's cool. You can personally, that's you, homie. That's you. If you personally disagree, that's fine. This is from my point of view, being a Final Fantasy fan for, I turned 29 like next week. This is me being a Final Fantasy fan for almost 30 years of my life. I've been playing this shit since I was like born, basically. And that's just my perspective on what good storytelling is. Ruler of Yore, thank you for the bits. What play into Dirge Buha. But yeah, like they'd have to basically pull out a miracle in order to satisfy me with what they've done, or what they're planning on doing. There is and by the way, I love meta narrative elements. It's why I love Persona. It's why I love Nier. But you have to execute them right. You can't just do stuff and then call it a meta narrative element and then it be good. There is an actual approach that you need to take in order for the meta narrative elements to make sense and to be vibed. King Valvados, this makes me sad after seeing your heart before release. Yeah, I know. I spent 3 years. And in the course of that 3 years, I've made somewhere close to 400 Final Fantasy videos. And also, this is my full-time job. So if there was any way that I could actually, like, legitimately see the story if I could even lie about it, like with any inch of my body, I mean, it would make the most sense, right? But I genuinely, like, after reading all the fan theories, after reading, watching everyone's videos, all of it seems kind of mid to me. But like I said, that doesn't mean that it can't be like that doesn't mean that part 2 and 3 are going to be terrible games and I'm going to hate them. I still look forward to them. They still might be good games. Peachy Team are perfect. Just enjoy the ride then. Yeah, that's all I'm doing. Like, I'm just enjoying the ride. But I'm not going to, am I going to think that the arbiters and all that stuff is like super profound afterwards? I'm going to be thinking about that for while in long car rides or in the elevator or in the shower, thinking about how deeply plot ghost relate to my life and the things that I experience, compared to the themes of corporate greed, compared to the themes of loss and identity that the original is strong in. No. Golden Oracle, I just want to reply to that one more time. I think they're going to be largely different games, and we need to accept that. Dude, it's not that it's different. I don't care that it's different. I do not care that it's different. It can be different. It can even touch on different themes if it wants to. Like, it could do that. Like, all of that. Like, that's cool. But if it's going to do that, they have to be relatable. I can't relate plot ghosts to my real life. There's nothing that symbolizes that. There's nothing deep or profound about it. It's just not to me.
Well, and I think if you're going to market it as a remake and then it be a sequel, I think that's where the themes kind of dropped off for us, because it was like, you know, we thought this was going to be the original game revisited and expanded upon, and like the wall market stuff was great, you know, and it was completely almost completely different. But I think the shoehorning of meta narrative that doesn't quite fit the original themes is what kind of got us with it. And I'm on the same boat with Prince here. I've seen all the fan theories. I've watched all the videos. I've done my research on this stuff because I want to see all aspects of it. And, you know, it's looking at it in timelines. There's no timeline where I see myself enjoying the ghost and the narrative of fate and stuff like that. I just don't see myself in a place where I enjoy that, because it's not something that I personally either resonate with or can look back on and say that was just a powerful emotion that I felt, or a powerful movement that they're trying to put forward. It's just, to me, I can't, and I don't want to lie about how I feel about it, because I feel like someone needs to be on a real level with you guys. And if I'm sitting here feigning that I love the ghosts and I love all this stuff, then I'm not telling my audience, and well, really an extension, our audiences, how we truly feel. And you guys come to watch our videos because you want to see what we think of things, or our perspective, or whatever. And I feel like not only would I be lying to you guys, but I'd be lying to myself. And I don't want to lie to my audience. So I have to agree with Prince. I can enjoy the games. I thought the gameplay was really fun. I liked what they did with certain areas. I loved the characters and the music and everything. But the alternate timelines, the ending, the way it played out, I don't see myself enjoying that aspect of it.
A lot of people don't. That's why they try to refute that those things exist.
Yeah, exactly. They try to refute that timelines exist or that Zach's alive, because they also don't like it.
Yeah.
But then again, there's people that, like we've talked about before, there's a certain split in the fan base that people like the new direction and people that don't. And if these people that don't like the direction see every single content creator having the same opinion, then what's the point in watching different content creators talk about it? Or those people that are on the not liking it side don't have a voice. Yeah. And people try to silence that so much. Yeah, and people try to silence that voice. And it's not like we're trying to. So I personally do not want to hate anything about this game. I spent my whole life waiting for this game. And like Weeds just said, cautiously optimistic. That is what I am at right now. I spent my whole life waiting for this game. I don't want to hate the ending. I cannot stress that enough. I don't want to hate anything about this game. But if I see writing that I don't agree with, I have to say it. And if I don't agree with it, I'm going to put it in my content. Yeah. And that's where I'm at with it, is like, I don't want to lie to you guys. I want to be honest. And I want those people that are in the minority to have a voice as well.
There's one thing I want to touch on that was in the chat with Shaza Rose, who said the best stories are the ones that hit you on a personal level. And then I think PGT may reply to that not every story needs to do that to you, though. That it's just a video game and like it's like a form of entertainment. And I want to say that I disagree with that form of thinking, because if FF7 didn't give us that sensation that was profound, and that game that we think about on long car drives or while we're in the shower, we wouldn't be having this chat right now. We just wouldn't. We would not. That's just kind of how it works. Like I cannot imagine that. Like if the original FF7 was not a profound thing, we wouldn't be able to have multiple 2 to 3 hour conversations about it. And if F7R is not that thing, then is that not a huge letdown for it to be missing that same spirit that led us to be talking about a 20-plus-year-old game for hours every night? So
well, and it's why we form opinions.
Right.
If a story didn't resonate with you, then you're obviously going to have a lesser feeling about that story. So that's why it needing to resonate with you is what makes it so good, because it wouldn't be one of the most beloved games of all time if it didn't.
TTN Chris 1995, since you donated some bits, appreciate you. I will take one extra question from you. How much of an improvement y'all think Part 2's combat is going to be? I feel we do get all the characters, but it'll be like Part 1, but Chrono Trigger cooperative style before the last part, getting into KH2 territory, into complex, in-depth chemistry action with character interactive sequences. perhaps reaction commands to make it feel like your own action movie, which is why I really enjoy KH2's gameplay. Yeah, I would like to see those types of improvements to combat as well. I think everyone would like to see what you're talking about there.
I actually, so to touch on that, I made a video a while back.
Here we go.
It was, this will forever haunt me.
Is it the Nibelheim?
No,
the team attack video. Yeah.
So
Buster balls.
Little story time for you guys to wrap this up. So I made a video when I believe the Abzu boss fight came out, and there's a spot where the Tifa bounces off a Cloud sword, and we weren't all sure whether or not it was team attacks. So I released this video of team attacks, and I'm thinking, oh, this is awesome. I'm going to be like the first one to notice it or whatever. So I released my video, first one to talk about it. Next day, Maximilian Dude's breaking down the footage of that, and he was even like, okay, maybe it's a team attack, but maybe not. And then like it finally came out and then it wasn't. But I really was so hoping that it was going to be like Chrono Trigger, where it was like the dual text and stuff. And that's like my one thing in Remake that I really wanted was for like that bounce off a Cloud sword that Tifa did, because it reminded me of Advent Children. And I felt like the combat of Remake was kind of going for that feel.
Yeah.
So when you see in Advent Children, Cloud like bouncing off of Sid's spear, and I think like Vincent jumps up and grabs him and throws him towards Bahamut, and I think Tifa helps him at some point too in there. I'm like, oh my God, they're actually doing it. They're Chrono Triggering the Remake. And then when it didn't, I was so disappointed. So I totally feel you on that. And I really, really hope that happens in part 2.
Miss Split In, thank you for the bits. And I just want to read what you said here. Not a question, but I want to say I appreciate you all coming and sitting down and addressing your thoughts, as well as taking a second and being real with the chat. Appreciate you too. Thank you so much. I'm glad that you guys are a community that we can be real with and not have to and not have to put up a front necessarily about it. FishFriedCat, we ain't heard from you in a while. Actually, I wanted you to ask or to answer the question that we had sort of talked about earlier. Is there any way in which the elements, the meta narrative elements, can conclude in such a way that would actually make you feel satisfied?
So if I'm going by the fact that Final Fantasy VII was my first actual game to get me into the whole genre, my deep love for it and everything, no. But if we're going by just the other side of me that doesn't take things too seriously, and I can enjoy things for what they are, like I can most certainly enjoy the journey, because I'm not sure how many people admit it these days, but I love Mass Effect 3, not because of the last 10-20 minutes of that ending, which were awful, but the journey from 1 all the way to 3 was just really memorable. It stuck with me to this day. I still talk about it sometimes with some of our friends that like in the same group chat. And I think Remake did a lot of interesting things. Like one of the biggest reasons why I would love to just continue it is because I felt the characterizations of everybody, they were spot on. They were absolutely perfect. And the ending, I don't see it ending in a satisfying way. Like they can go big, flashy hype. That'll be cool. But only feel good like during the moment. But I think as long as, they hit some really good story beats, like with Nanak, as long as they hit the Nanaki with finding out about his father, like how he didn't actually run away. Wutai, I'm especially interested to see what they're going to do with that, especially now since they're more in the forefront and they're treated as this big like terrorist nation Like that's how Shinder tries to paint them. I guess all I'm really trying to say is it's possible.
Yeah. That's actually a good point, right? Like maybe there is some possibility out there that they can put something out that will surpass my expectation. I just want to say, and I'm pretty sure Soldier feels the same way. So does Fish. If they do something with Game 2 narratively and tie the plot goes in, and it does happen and it does blow me away, I will be like so happy, and I will be apologizing left and right about it. And I in fact hope that I desperately hope that I'm wrong, because what Final Fantasy fan do you know that loves Final Fantasy would want to and loves it enough to make like 400 videos on it like over the course of like 3 years? Who would want Final Fantasy? Yeah, for like who would want Final Fantasy VII Remake, the game that he has waited his whole life for, to be bad? It's just, it does not make any sense. I have no agenda in wanting this game to be bad. That's
well, and I'm going to go on record as saying that if I get to the end of part 3 or part 9, however, part 72, however many this goes, and I realize that the journey and the end wraps up in a way that I'm satisfied with, I will personally make a video for y'all and say I was wrong. I will humbly make that video and gladly make that video, because that means not only did you guys win, but in the end, I end up winning. We end up winning. If we're satisfied with where this goes, we all end up winning. And that's really all we want. So I got to say, I will personally apologize for being wrong if I'm wrong.
If it blows me away, I will literally shove like a DualShock 4 or 5 up my butt, like on live stream.
Somebody clip that.
I will get banned. I will take the ban here on Twitch just so that I can.
Somebody clip this
to rectify it, or maybe I'll like upload it on like some website. But that's what I want. I want that to happen. Like I want that to be the reality. Like I desperately want that to be the reality. But
this conversation just got
I'll personally
really dark.
I will personally drive all the way over there to place it up there for you.
Thank you.
We can do it live on stream.
I'll hold the camera.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Oh man, that'd be amazing. You want to talk about a great stream, record numbers.
I feel as your yes man, you can do no wrong. It has to be me who does it.
I love you, man. I love both of you guys. Actually, I love everybody watching this. I love chat. Like I love you guys so much. So much. We're going to wrap this stream up here. It will be on YouTube. Some of you are probably, actually the majority of you probably will be listening this on YouTube.
You know, it's like we wouldn't do this if we didn't love this franchise and we didn't love you guys. Because I mean,
yeah,
there are probably a lot more money to be made if we weren't doing this. You know?
Imagine if we were making fucking Fortnite money.
Yeah, no shit.
Yeah, Fortnite money goes way harder than Final Fantasy money. Okay, I think that's going to be a wrap. I love you guys. This has been the Night Sky Prince.
I'm Soldier First Class.
Looking like second class.
I was reading chat. Sorry.
And this?
Can I like, don't end it yet. I haven't, said my name yet to end the stream. Jesus. I don't want to anymore. FishFriedCat. Follow, like, subscribe, comment. I make funny videos, I promise. The other two can vouch for me. Just do it, please. I don't want to work my job anymore. Actually, really depressing.
Oh my god, Steph.
Oh my god.